Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Juicy Show podcast, Mumbai edition, of course. This intro song is actually made by me a really long time ago, and I'm really glad to find it. Actually, I'd forgotten that I'd actually done something like this. So in the time of quarantine, of course, it's great that you find such things. And I hope all of you doing well in terms of, the quarantine situation and all. And the city we're in right now, Bombay, we are at a complete curfew right now. So no one's allowed outside at all. And it's been like that in my understanding, that's how it was to begin with. But when they implement curfew, apparently there's a lot more people that are on the streets. That sometimes you do see people out. And there are a couple of states in India that are kind of showing that people are disregarding the curfew and so forth. So that's a little troubling. But with the World Health Organization this morning shouting out India in a big way, saying, India is responsible for getting rid of smallpox and polio both. And so there's high hopes that the scientific community, aka nerds, right. So, India is a country full of nerds and proud of it. Nerds, education is very important no matter where you go in India, no matter what kind of Indian is there. And just... welcome to the new listeners who are listening via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or what have you. So I'm in India. I've been in India since 2009, but before that I was living in New York. And the Juicy Show, in fact, started at Geneseo WGSU 89.3 FM, the voice of the valley, in upstate New York as a radio show. Then I kind of brought it to Brooklyn, where my friend Mike recorded 7 episodes for me, and it was really fun to do. So that's really cool. And now finally we're bringing it to the masses via all these different channels. So that's really cool. I just was, speaking of the World Health Organization, like how that guy was talking about India, all of a sudden people in India really like, hey, way to go India, way to go India, which is great. But I always found that really funny that people will take credit for something that they haven't done, like you haven't discovered the cure for anything, or I haven't. And yet, oh wow, well, India did it. So, what did I do in that situation, and what did you do? I'm not trying to say what you did. You were just you, and that's more than enough. Thank you, listener. You're the best. I truly mean that. But you know what I mean? Like, people think, oh, I'm from this place, so I'm cool, or I'm from that place, so I'm cool. Or there's just pride of geographic location. It really bothers me because you've not done anything to get you. Okay, that's enough. It makes me laugh. You've not done anything, so why are you like amped that you're from Minnesota? Minnesota. Oh, the new season of Fargo is starting, and that should be really good. Chris Rock is in it in a dramatic role. By the way, I'm having cold brew coffee right now, and it's really cool. It's really good. It's not always so good, but I had it with cashew and oat milk earlier. Now I'm having it plain. No sugar, of course. Come on. Who has sugar in 2020? Are you crazy? But if you like coffee, cold brew is something that's really potent. You kind of keep the coffee in the water overnight, and it's a cold process. There's no heating, as the name implies. And that's really good for the environment too, actually, if you think about it. Lower your carbon footprint, have cold brew coffee. Oh, yes. So, what can I talk about today? So we have, Caleb is asleep, taking a nap. We're all surviving really nicely. We did have to go out in the car the other day being yesterday, and to the doctor. We didn't have any special place to go. We weren't disobeying or anything. So we went out quickly, The ride that generally takes 30 minutes, traffic in Bombay is horrendous. 30 minutes, it literally took 5 minutes yesterday. So just to show you that there are good things that come out of the virus. I've also seen a lot of people kind of creating new stuff, creating their, not just podcasts, but also content of new types. I did hear a grandmother in Italy. She was 90-something old, and she she recovered, so that's good news also. And I was just thinking, if you've recovered from the virus, then you're really not happy with the shutdown, because you're just like, hey, I'm recovered, I'm not going to get it. Or, you don't get the same strain again, but you want to go out maybe. That sound means it's time to play sound effects. So this, I love playing sound effects. I kind of picked that up in my radio days. So that's the other thing. There's no sports or anything happening right now. So people are like really, wondering what to do at home. You could try out some cooking recipes. Like if you've never baked a vegan cookie in your life, now's the time to do that. If you have the ingredients, obviously. I mean, canned foods and so forth can last you forever. But if you take a little bit of flour, a little bit of water, sugar. I have a whole blog of vegan Jane recipes, yummyvegan.tumblr.com. And it's filled with recipes. I might try baking, but the situation in our oven right now is kind of iffy. We have an oven, but it's, there's no temperature measuring. So it's retrofitted with a gas. I can't explain this. It's a visual thing. Basically, it's an electric oven that was brought over from New York to Bombay, and it never worked here because electric appliances don't work in India. If you're thinking about moving to India anytime soon, which many people will be, because the business here and the economy is booming. That was my Donald Trump moment. I don't know what just happened. But I mean, many people are, because there's lots of opportunity and there's a billion people that sell whatever you want to. So it's a big market. So anyway, if you're bringing over appliances, don't bring over microwaves, televisions. We've thrown away one TV. This oven was almost gone, but there's this one guy who's like, no, I'm going to make it work. And so he kind of retrofitted it with the gas line. So not the fire burns, but with the gas line in and not the electric. But we don't know what the temperature is. So like preheat to 200 degrees, I don't know. It could be like 500 degrees. I have no idea what's happening in that thing. And we're just baking blind. I know blind baking is something else. If you watch a Great British Bake Off, which I do, but this is like literally just blind baking. We don't know what the temperature to keep. I hope I've not bored you so far with my banter. The goal of this podcast, honestly, is just to kind of share my life, just share things that are different or similar. I always find that New York and Bombay kind of run on the same wavelength. If I look at the news over there versus here, whether it's city politics, whether it's kind of like the weather patterns sometimes, and I don't know, just like the vibe of both cities is very similar, and I find that to be true. But obviously the people are eclectic over in New York, where we have, growing up in Queens, we had the whole world living in Elmhurst. Literally, it is the most diverse neighborhood in the country. So I never kind of got like, this thing about like, you're different. I felt like different is same. And that was really, I really love Queens for kind of embedding that in me. So that's a shout out to Queens, I guess. In the next episode, we will try, we being me, I'll try to have a guest, one of my friends who is a big time producer. I won't name drop right now. I'll give you her intro in the next episode. and we're trying to do a Skype interview. So if that comes through, you're all going to be very lucky, because it's a very prominent show that she produces, and I'd like to ask her a lot of questions of how she went from, her journey to success. Because I always find that people who show up on Instagram, Insta famous, don't always understand that there's actual people who are successful, who have put work into so many things in their fields, in their respective fields, to get there. And it's not just about the superficial coolness or getting the likes and the follows. Right? You agree with that? Can you get behind that? Thank you. I appreciate it. So with that, I'll just keep it short. If you want to get at me on Twitter, at DPM Social, Instagram at DPM Social, having just bashed Instagram and being a social media marketer for a living, that's hashtag irony. Right. Thank you for listening. Please stay at home, stay safe. I really want to shout out Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, because I realize that both of the Jimmys, they did this. They're doing the shows, in social isolation, and it kind of just seeing them reminds me of that. We're at the end, if you're creating something and you're not famous, or you have, let's say, 2 listeners like I do, or maybe I'm not being modest. I'll just tell you, we have a few hundred right now for the past few episodes of the Juicy Show, so that's cool. But the few hundred versus millions, the difference is the army of production crew. A big shout out to anyone out there in production. Even when I was in short films, I was really supportive of the crew, where that's the lighting guy, where there's a sound guy, just someone who kind of runs around and makes things happen. All these people behind the scenes that kind of amp up the production. That's the value of your show. But the thing of creators, like people who just want to speak or share some love with everybody, it's just that we're kind of all in the same boat. We're just trying to do something fun for us, something that I'd like to hear, or something that they'd like to hear. So I was just really happy seeing the content that they're putting out. I love Jimmy Kimmel's interview with Bill Burr. He made a really funny joke, Bill Burr, that he's like, I have no need to do anything. I don't miss doing any of the traveling. I do miss doing the shows. He said that, but then he's telling Jimmy that it's you who can't live alone with your thoughts for 6 days. I thought that was really funny, because if you put me in a room alone with nothing to do, just my thoughts, I'd go bonkers. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate you. Stay safe. A lot of love and peace to everybody. Thanks for listening. Peace.